So in this video, we're going to go over how to use some basic Excel functions. So down here, you have two tabs. And so make sure you're on the basic Excel one. We're going to start out with the very, very basics. So what we have here are numbers. I just typed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 here. And then I'll put ones over here. So I wanted to show you how you can add numbers together and how Excel is referring to the numbers in various cells. So let's say we wanted to add 1 plus 1. Then in this column, I can click on it and it highlights it in green. And then up here, it's going to have the bar, the formula bar that I type stuff in, or I can type directly in here. And so in this case, anytime I want to tell Excel I want to do a function or I want to do some kind of operation, mathematical operation, I need to start with an equal sign. So type in equal, then I want to add these two numbers. And so I'm going to click on that cell. You see it's highlighted. Then I'm going to type in a plus sign, and then I'm going to click on this number. And at this point, to get this function to add things up in this cell, which is G6, right? I need to hit enter. All right, so if I do that, you see 1 plus 1 is 2. All right, so I want to keep doing that here, but with Excel, there is there's an easy way to do lots of calculations at once. So if you click on this cell now, you can see the formula up here that it's referring to. E, that's this column, 6 is this row, so it's referring to this cell, and F6, so F6. So it's saying that we're adding those together here. I can drag this green box down and get all of these cells to do the same addition, referring to the neighboring cells in column E and F. But I wanted to show you some ways that you can drag correctly and incorrectly. So as you can see, there's a green box, and at the corner here, there's like a little green square. So if you hover over it, you see this plus sign, and you see this. If I click on this, left click and drag, I'm actually moving the cell. But if you see, if I double click on this, I'm still referring to this. I just moved it down here. All right. So sometimes that might be some function you want to do, but not in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter, because if I start clicking at other places, I will mess this formula up. And then I want to undo what I did. So these arrows up here is undo or redo what I did. Or there's a fast command on PCs, which is, if you look at the keyboard, you see a control button at the very left bottom corner. If you hold that down and press the Z button, then you go back, you undo what you've done. So now we're back up here. The formula is correct. All right, so I wanted to quickly make this same calculation where I take this column and I add 1, right? And then we're going to get those. So I want to grab, I'm going to hover and get this plus sign, this little green square. So I want to grab it by clicking on it and then drag it down all the way. And if I click somewhere else, now you see that all these numbers are the sum of this plus this. So 10 plus 1 is 11, 9 plus 1 is 10, and so forth. And I can always verify where Excel is taking the numbers from by, for example, if I click on this, double click on it, like it has to be a really quick click to get there to highlight. Then it highlights the cells that it's using to calculate the number in the cell. So you can see it's using this plus this. And then once again, once you've seen this and you want to get out of this, the best way to not mess up your function is to hit enter like that. I'll show you again. If I double click, like a quick click, if I start clicking here, well, it didn't do it this time, but it's easy to, like, if you wanted to refer to a different cell, you can move this, right? And so the best way to not mess up the stuff you have is just hit enter. All right. So I'm going to delete this, but I would like you guys to, so if I want to delete it, I highlight it and I drag and highlight. See, I didn't grab this. I just highlighted it by clicking and dragging. Not if I'm not touching the little square. And then I do not backspace. If I do backspace, it will only delete the top. I actually find the delete button and I can delete that. All right. So I did it down here because sometimes when I teach students and the numbers up here, people actually go up all the way here and highlight, or they drag like this, and then their formula won't be right because you can see it's doing something weird here. So if I go over here and I do equal and I want to add this place this, then I type sum parenthesis. I don't have to do that. So there's a few ways. I can do sum parenthesis, click on this, and then click on plus, and then click on this and close the parenthesis, and I get 2. Now I can, if I do like this, I'm moving it, and I don't want to do that. I want to grab the little green square, and then it does all the calculations. So over here, we did a different formula to add these. Here we typed equal sign, then I clicked on this, and then I did plus, and then I clicked on this, and then I hit enter. So here, I'll drag this again. All right, so as you can see, we're getting the same numbers in these columns. If I click on the 6 here, you can see up here, it's saying equal E10 plus F10. And then once you hit enter, you get 6. Over here, I used a different formula. So if I click on this, it's using a formula that's saying equal, and now we're telling it to do an operation called summation. Sum, and then I put what I wanted to sum up within a parenthesis, and I said it before, it's always good to have more parentheses than less, nesting things, and then I hit enter, and you get the same number. So it's 2 different ways to do addition. Other things, let's say I wanted to copy these 2 columns and do some calculation over here. Well, I can highlight both. Remember, I'm not grabbing that little green thing. I'm literally just clicking and dragging and then dragging down. And there's a shortcut on PCs for copy, which is that control button plus C. And then it highlights it like this. And then I can click somewhere else and say, I want to paste all that stuff over here. And so the shortcut for that is the control button and V. All right. And then if you want to get out of this highlighting, you just go click somewhere else, and you can do a quick click and you get out of it. There's another way you can do copy. So I click and drag. Then on your mouse, you can do a right click and tell it to copy. And then you can go over here and do a right click. And then here you get some options. So you can do just paste. And in that case, it's copying the numbers here. Anyway, I'm going to delete all this. So I highlight and I hit delete. I highlight and hit delete. Or actually, I want to save that. And I just want to delete this. Okay. Now I did backspace. You see how it only deleted the top. So I'm going to go enter. I'm going to highlight and do the delete button. Highlight and do delete. Whoops. I'm going to undo. I don't know what I did. Okay. Highlight and hit the delete button, and then it's all gone. So now the sheet is the way it was when we started. Okay. So at this point, the first analysis we're going to do is class grade analysis. So we're all been in school, and this will show you one way that teachers might figure out class averages. But as we know, we done averages, standard deviations, medians, and weighted average for many other applications. And so what you're learning now, you can do with everything else. So we're going to follow these instructions that are over here. So the first thing we're going to do is calculate the weighted average for each student to figure out the total score they had in this class. And so once again, because I'm doing an operation that I'm telling Excel I want to do some kind of mathematical operation, I have to start with an equal sign. Then you remember we do weighted average by taking the weight of the group and we convert that to decimal. And then we can multiply it with the percentage. Then we add the other weight and we multiply that with the percentage that this person had in the class, plus the weight times the percentage here. And then once we crunch that out, we get what their weighted average was for this class. So let's do it. So you can see this is 0.3. Weighted 0.3, exam 2 is weighted 0.3, and the final exam is weighted 0.4. So all of it adds up to 100%, or in decimal form, 1. So I'll show you how we did it in class. And so I'm going to start with, I told you extra parentheses are good. So I'm going to do a parenthesis, and then I'm going to do one more parenthesis because I want to nest this together. Then I want to nest this together and this together. And then I'm going to add those nested things together. And we get our total weighted average. So I'm going to do one parenthesis for the whole calculation, and then I'm going to do another parenthesis because I want to do this calculation. And so I'm going to type in 0.3. And then when you do multiplication in Excel, it's an asterisk. So you're going to have to find the asterisk usually above 8. So you do that by hitting Shift and then the 8 button, and you get this little asterisk, and you'll see the formula up here too. Well, so Joe had 75%. And so now that is multiplied. So I'm going to close that parentheses. And then we're going to add plus. And so don't do any spaces. This is just no spaces at all. So now we want to add his 80 that was weighted at 30%. And so I'm going to do another parenthesis, 0.3. And then multiplication was the asterisk. And in this case, he had 80. And then I'm going to close that parenthesis. And then we're going to add. And then I'm going to do another parenthesis because here's the final exam. It was weighted a little bit more. And so it's going to be 0.4. And then times 82. 82. And then I'm going to close that parenthesis. But you see, we had this parenthesis over here. So we need to close the whole expression with one more. So now you can always count how many parentheses you have pointing one way. And then this one, so you see there's 2 here and 2 here. And so we're good. Everything else is nested and even in there. So all I need to do now is hit enter. And so Joe's final score based on this calculated weighted average is 79.3% in the class. The problem is what we just did now is not an efficient way to do all of these students' calculation in this course. So what I'm going to show you is if I click on this, I can go up here and edit this formula. And in fact, if I, instead of typing in the value 75, which was in cell B2, if I instead click on it, it puts B2 in there. And then I want to edit the 80 to refer to C2. See, it changed it to C2. And then I want to change this 82 to be D2. Now, I don't want to touch anywhere else. Just go to the enter key and hit enter. It's still the same number, right? Because math doesn't change. But at this point, I can take that little square, that green square, I can grab it with my mouse and drag it all the way down, and voila, there is the whole class scores. Could you imagine how much time you would have spent if you had to type in all of the weighted averages for each of the rows? So in this case, you invested some time typing it in the first row, and then you just dragged, and it did all these calculations, in a fraction of a second. So our next job is that we want to figure out, okay, so what was the average on these exams, and what was the average for the total in the class? So we're going to do step 2 here. We're going to do average, we're going to do median, we're going to do standard deviation of the mean, and then we're also going to figure out what was the highest score in the class for an exam, and what's the lowest score for the class in an exam. So by having highest and lowest, you get something called the range. So what we're going to do over here, I'm going to click under the names, and I'm going to type average. Then I'm going to type median. Then I'm going to do standard deviation. I'm going to do a short notation, STDV. And then I'm going to do highest and lowest. So those are the scores. Now in this, I want to type in the formula for average. And it turns out that Excel has these pre-programmed formulas. So all I need to do is an equal sign where I'm telling Excel you're going to do some kind of mathematical operation. And then I start typing average, and it pops up here. And all I need to do is double click on it. And now it says, okay, pick numbers that you want to average. So I go up to Joe, and so I want to average all of the students, right? So I go up to Joe, click on it, and in fact, I actually want to go here and change that. I want to go up to Joe, click and hold and drag. Click, hold, and drag all the way down. And as you see up here, I need to close the parenthesis. You can see it down there too. So then I'm closing the parenthesis and I'm hitting enter. All right, there you go. That's the average for exam 1, 79.83. Well, these are way too many decimal points, so I can format that by going over here. I can get more or I can get less. And so in this case, I think 1 decimal point is plenty. Then the next one we're going to do median. And so we want to start with typing equal sign and then start typing median and then a parenthesis. And then I want to go up here, click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag, and then close the parenthesis. All right. Standard deviation, I'm going to do equal, and then I'm going to start typing standard. And you see, I only typed ST, and here it goes, standard dev. P stands for population, and S stands for sample. And you might go, oh, this is a population, it's people, but it's not. This is for huge numbers, like a big population. This is actually a sample. It's 19 minus 1, so 18 people in this class. It's not very big. I wouldn't call it a population. So I'm going to double click on that, and then I'm going to click and highlight, click and drag, and close the parenthesis, and do that. And we're going to format more efficiently, so we'll come back to format this. For the highest score, I want to do equal, but I'm not going to type highest. I'm going to type maximum or max. Max. All right. So here I can either double click on this or it's done. I can just do my own parenthesis. And we're going to click, hold, and drag, close the parenthesis, hit enter. And then here we're going to do the lowest, and it's not lowest, it's equal minimum, which is min. And in this case, I could do my parentheses again, or I could double click and it puts the parentheses there. And I do click, hold, and drag, close the parentheses. All right, back to formatting. I can just highlight all of these and go up here and say, I want 1. So I'm going to go over here. So 1 decimal for all of these. All right, so let's take a look at it. So the average was 79.8. The median was 83. And so remember, the median is the middle number of all the scores. And so in this case, I would say that half the class had 83 or higher. That's pretty good median. Standard deviation is the variability in the scores, and it's not too bad. Could, it's spread out, but at least it could be an indication that the exam was a healthy exam. Because if you have a very high average and very tight standard deviation, it's going to make it really hard for a teacher to set grades unless they're willing to just give everyone like A's or whatever they end up on. But in general, it's, as a teacher, you want to kind of communicate to the next institution, like, how was this student? How did they do compared to the other ones? And if everyone has the same grade, you're not really doing that, right? So it's always usually better for a professor to have more spread out and then maybe have to adjust at the end of the semester. But every professor does it, they have their own grading policy. In any case, I can see that the highest score was 100% and the lowest was a 43. And in fact, like if you scan here, there is the 100 that really pops out because it has 3 digits. But now I want to do that for these guys too, including all the weighted averages. And so it's super easy. I go over here, I click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag. I highlighted it. Now I go grab this little green square, click it, hold it, and drag sideways all the way over here. And there, it calculated and formatted to 1 decimal point all the other exams and the final scores or grades in the course. So for the second exam, you can see students did even better. And we had someone score 100 on all of the exams. This was the final exam. We don't know if it was comprehensive, but it does look like the average was lower, but the median was not. And then if we look at the standard deviation, students, they scored much more similar on the exam 2, but on the final exam in the first one, there was more spread to the numbers. Then for our final exam or final score in the course, you can see that there was a lot of, or our average was a low B and the median was a middle B. Like this was a B minus and this is a B. The highest was obviously an A plus and the lowest was an F. So we have done step 1 and step 2, and now we're going to assign grades. And so here is the classic grading scheme. Once again, professors do different things. It depends on how hard the class is, how much expectation is for students to be challenged. I think we all can agree that an art class, ceramics or drawing, the stakes might not be as high as a calculus class. So in either case, we're going to follow this grading scheme and we're going to type in the letter grades. And so I recommend just putting on caps lock because we're going to do all capital letters. And then we're just going to look at, okay, 79.3. So where does that fall? Okay, so that is a C. And we're not going to bother with C minus and C plus and all the minuses and pluses. We're just going to do C. And then hit enter. The next one is an A. Then we have a D, and then a C, and then an A, and a B, and then a C, a B, an A, an F. Then we had a C, a B, a B, a B, a B, a B, and a B. So you can see when you don't do pluses and minuses, there's a big range here. This person and this person got exactly the same grade. When if you had put pluses and minuses, this would have been a B minus and this would have been a B plus. But for simplicity and speed of this video, we're just going to do that. So next, we're going to just figure out how many students in this class got an A. So we're just going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. I'm going to type in 4. Then B's, we have a lot of B's. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, 8. Then C's, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 C's. D's, we had 1. Okay, 1 D. And then F, we had 1 F. 1 F. All right, so just to double check that I didn't miss anyone, we can go over here and see that we have Joe through Kevin. We can easily highlight these and then go look down here. It says count 18. So 18 students, all right? Then we can go over here, highlight, click and drag, and then it says sum 18. Okay, so I know I didn't miss any. There is as many grades in this here as it is people. So at this point, we're done with step 3 and step 4. So next, we're going to make a graph of this. And so how you make a graph is that we want to have this on the x-axis and this on the y-axis. And we want to have a visual representation of, the grade distribution in this class. So what we're going to do is we're going to click, hold, and drag all the way down here. All right. Then you're going to move the cursor over, but don't click yet. What you need to do first is find that control key button on the very left bottom corner of your keyboard and hold it the whole time. So press it, hold it. Now click and drag down the number column. And then let go of both. So what you did now is you highlighted this, and Excel knows that. So we want to go up here where it's insert, and we want to say, okay, so here is a whole bunch of graphing options, but we want to do a bar graph. And if you hover over it, it will say insert column or bar graph. If you click on this arrow, you get options, design options. Do you want a 3D version? You can see if you hover over it, it will show, ooh, that's kind of cool. Can also do sideways and so forth. But I'm just going to do like the classic bar graph. So like this. All right. So at this point, I'll just stick it here and make it bigger because I don't want to scroll away from all the data. You can put it down here. So here's our graph, but it's not complete because we always have to have a title. And so in this case, you double click on that text and this box comes up. Then you can click and drag. And now you can type whatever title you need to have in there. And so the title should describe to the viewer what is it you're looking at. And so this is going to be grade. Whoops, I still have caps on, lock on, so I'm going to undo that. Grade distribution in, and we're going to say math 1A. I'm just making things up. Then you can either click somewhere else, and now you have that title. The other thing missing is that you should always have descriptors of what is the y-axis and what is the x-axis. And so in this case, we need to add them. So if I click over here, notice the graph is not highlighted. If I click somewhere, don't click like on lines or columns, click somewhere where it's just like white, non-essential area. So if I click once, you get this. And so this plus sign, if you click on that, here you can say, oh, I want access titles. So I just click that checkbox and now you get these things. And so I'm going to start here. I can click on that or I can click on that. It highlights it. Once again, I can drag and now I can type in letter grade because that's what we're looking at. And then over here, I'm going to click and here you kind of have to drag sideways. And here's going to be number of students with that letter grade, right? So now it's easy to use this chart. Okay, this is grade distribution in Math 1-8. And here you can see B was clearly the most common grade. A's and C's were even. If you go over here, you had 8 B's, you had 4 A's, you had 4 C's, 1 D, and 1 F. All right, so with that, we are done with like the whole challenge here. At this point, I'm just going to show you if you wanted to change the color, because sometimes if you're going to print in black and white, maybe the color that Excel picked is not a good one. You can click on them. You see how it highlighted the bars, and over here you can choose to change the fill. We can make them red. All right. And maybe red isn't good, so we need to do like a dark gray that might print nicely and so forth. So those are some options that you could always play around with. You can do like different patterns. Like I can do stripes or checkers. But you should think about printability. So often like that, this one would probably be okay, but I'm going to go back to solid. And if you don't have a color printer, I would probably do some darker color. All right. And that's all I have on this sheet. Hopefully your graph looks the same.